Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. Today we have the eminent Mr. George Storm with us here from Break the Box. Good to have you here, man.
Nice to be here. Thank you. Thanks for the intro.
So the thing that we do here, I actually stolen this from another podcast, but we just start off with a quote, if you prepared it, and just talk a little bit about the quote also, if why you like it.
I do, and I did prepare it. I have to tell you this short story. I had a hard time picking because I sort of assumed that when you said pick a quote, I needed to pick a quote from another person. I'm a bit reluctant to taking other people's words. Famous, I do from colleagues and peers, but like famous people and stuff like that. I heard a lot of I don't know, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs quotes that I'm not super fond of. And with the risk of sounding, as an intro to these podcasts, sounding very egotistical, I will use one of my own quotes instead, which goes like this. So in business, being altruistic is the most selfish thing you can do, which has been very much a guide throughout my commercial career. I'm in sales and revenue operations for 22 years. So being service oriented or having a genuine interest in helping others succeed is the best investment you can make in your own career. As an individual contributor, as a business owner, as a founder, whatever it is that you do. Because you're growing your network, you're growing your credibility, and helping people will always benefit you too in the end. So that's the quote I picked.
I love it. I actually heard a quote from Daniel Ek today, where he says that in Spotify we say talk is cheap, and that is actually a virtue, meaning that if we talk about it, that is going to be cheaper than actually building it and doing the iterations. So he sort of flipped the script, which you also did a little bit here, that said like, yeah, if you think altruistically, that is going to be the most egotistical thing that you could ever do. So I really like that idea.
Thank you. I think both things are super true. So action is always more valuable than theory, especially in business context, right?
Yeah, definitely. So you're the CEO and founder of Break the Box. So what do you guys do?
Right. So we are a quite niche consultancy house. So we help exclusively B2B SaaS companies with revenue acceleration. And I understand that is a quite broad, as I call them, a nothing term, because acceleration without explanation doesn't really mean anything. But after spending a total of almost 20 years in B2B SaaS between myself and my co-founder, I think we've made any and all mistakes in revenue anyone can make. So we're trying to now leverage that experience to helping organizations basically grow their bottom line revenue.
And I really like your guys' branding. You always wear these rock and roll T-shirts. I love it. What's that band? All right.
That's a Polish band called Behemoth.
Right.
But the brand is very much follows part of the company's mentality. This is why it's called Break the Box. We believe in unconventional or pattern interrupting activities in both in business, in sales, and also in life. So the way that you see me now, with the tattoos and the band T-shirt and the earrings and all that stuff, is how I am as a person, is how I communicate as a person, and pretty much what you see on LinkedIn or in podcasts or wherever else in social is what you get when you meet me or when you work with me. So it is very important for two reasons. One is we want to nail the both personal and brand authenticity. I want people to be able to trust that what they see when I post or when I speak is also what they're going to see if they work with me. And then it's a second component after being in corporate jobs for many years is to sort of prove to people that you don't need to be in a uniform necessarily, and be without personality to succeed in your field. Awesome. So we want to encourage people to be as much of themselves as they want, basically.
Yeah, and also be a little bit of a renegade or rebel, I suppose. I really like that, and that's one of the reasons why I got into the digital space, because it was a possibility for us to really go a little bit rogue and to do new things and be disruptive, right?
Exactly.
I think actually somebody looked at the stock price of Meta, Facebook, and whenever when Mark Zuckerberg started to redo his style, actually that correlates with the stock price going up. It's probably not causality, but it's just a funny thing to see that he sort of broke out of his mold a little bit.
Yeah, but I think it does relate, because brands are built around people, right? We want to, especially in how the market balance has changed now. The era that we followed brands is quite decisively gone. I think we want to connect with actual people. This is why, and the reason we look like that is not because, okay, it's edgy and it will catch people's attention. It's more to the fact that that's who we are. And we want to promote authenticity as much as we can. So if people, there are certain people that won't like this getup, and these people will most likely not work well with me, and that's has to be okay.
Yeah, definitely. And that's really cool. I like that. And it's I was quite inspired when I saw Billions and he wore this Metallica t-shirts. And I actually considered getting one, but it's not authentic to my brand and who I am. So I thought, no, that's forcing it. But I'm really attracted to the idea of having something unique, and that's really cool.
And I love Billions, by the way. I've watched the series like 6 times.
Oh wow, it's cool. Yeah, it's such a they do such a good job of just catching what's culturally cool in New York at the moment, I think, and all of the restaurants and everything. I just actually Googled the restaurants also. I visited a few of them, or just at least one, and they're pretty good restaurants also. So they're really got their.
No, it's well crafted. I think it's a very well crafted plot, and the series is super good. And also, I think you should get the t-shirt. It doesn't matter if it is. If you feel like it, you should just do it and see how it feels.
Yeah, just
if it doesn't fit, then it doesn't fit.
Yeah, as an experiment. Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's see. You talked a little bit about this, but what is your background and how did you come? Why did you found your own company?
Right. So I can start a bit from the beginning, right? So I have been in sales for now 22 years in various roles. I think I like to say that I've sold virtually everything under the sun. So I did telco, retail, I did real estate, I did loans and credit cards. Then I went into trainings and events. I was at The Economist for a while. I then moved my first stint into doing pre-seed consulting for startups. When I came to Sweden, I fell in love with the startup scene. Innovation, the type of crowd that is around that scene is super inspiring. Then I joined a then very young company here in Sweden called Scrive. We were 12, 15 people at the time. I did all commercial roles. So started as an SDR at the time, a senior account. I started the first enterprise team. Then I was VP sales and customer success for a while. Then towards the end, I did sales enablement, which means training the sales organization on sales technique, both the teams themselves and their managers, to create sort of alignment. And I think there is sort of an epidemic around my age for executives to sort of jump off the corporate train, so to speak, and start their own business. This, for me, has been my career plan since I was like 22. I plan to do the roles that I did. So management, I plan to first have a very established and high-performing career as an individual contributor, go into management, be successful there, into hiring, quota attainment, growing the teams, and then use that knowledge and jump into consultancy, which is what happened last year.
Awesome. And just where are you from before coming to Sweden?
Originally, I'm from Greece. I was actually born in Sweden. My parents moved back to Athens in the 90s. I came back in 2010.
Awesome.
So that's the short story.
Yeah, cool. And let's go into the details then. What's your ideal customer profile, your ICP with Break the Box? Yes,
and our ICP is super narrow. So we only work with B2B SaaS companies. We have segmented this into 3 parts. So there is a pre-seed engagement, which is usually a very early stage. Companies usually pre-seed post-revenue, trying to figure out their go-to-market, to nail down ICP, to look at the first sales process, usually founder-led sales. We get involved primarily as advisors. Then we have the bulk, the biggest range, which is startups. So anywhere from 10 to 60, 70 people. And then from there, we go to scale-ups. So 200, 300 plus employees on headcount.
All right.
Regionally, we primarily, just to add the rest of the details of the ICP, if you wish. So we work with Nordics, Benelux, UK in primarily when it comes to our targets, in that order.
And you didn't go for Germany, which is the...
I did not. I have went for Germany before in several engagements. No offense to German listeners, but I don't have the patience for the purchasing culture in Germany. I do not.
Yeah.
With all due respect, I don't.
Yeah. Well, Germany, they are quite self-aware. But they're all also very transparent on this is how we work, and this is our competitive advantage, and this is our competitive disadvantage, and they're quite aware of it. But yeah, it's a big country, it's a big boat, let's say.
It's a huge market too, and I wouldn't discourage people to go into it. This is the benefit of having your own company, not needing to address absolutely everyone. Part of our strategy is influenced by cultural fit.
Yeah.
So on average, people that are closer to how we work, both in decision making, probability of short-term change in order to move things to have short-term results. So no, when it comes to the scene in Germany, it's not something that we elected to do for now.
No.
We're not going to say no if people want to work with us. Just from a proactive perspective, it's not something that we're pursuing currently.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. And I also like especially the Netherlands. My parents lived there for 3 years, so I visited a little bit, and I like the culture. It's a really cool area, and especially Amsterdam being just the sort of hub of the coolness hub outside of Berlin, I would say.
It is 100%. Berlin is super cool when it comes to if you want to go party and stuff. They have an amazing scene, but it's
yeah, it's different. All right, and then let's go back to your company then. What is your unfair advantage, would you say?
I think there is two things. One is that we have worked all roles for which we're advising. So I worked with a lot of trainers. I worked with a lot of consultants as a manager and as an individual contributor. There has always been a trust gap in my mind, because I am reluctant, especially working at a startup, to take advice from a person that did a tenure in Microsoft as a director and then jump onto doing consulting. Our worlds are frankly not the same.
Yes.
We're not even doing, I would argue, we're not even doing the same job.
No.
So both me and my co-founder, we have done the journey. Actually, for her, it's several companies from startup to scale up, all the stages, both as sales reps, as managers, as parts of the extended management team, as advisors. So we still are very, very involved. And the second part, I would say, has to do with the mentality of the company. I love to say that we created a consultancy for people that hate consultants. In the sense that we focus at least 70% on hands-on execution.
Yeah.
So I have a very strong aversion to traditional consultancy gigs. We go in, we present a slew of data, Excels, PowerPoints, hours of presentation where the consultants talk at the people.
Yeah.
And then you have spent 2 weeks of workshops and you sit in the morning. It's like, so what have we gained from this? That's a good question, usually. So we are very hands-on. And just to give you an example, what happens usually when we take on projects, we will set a numerical target. So we want to bring in 150K in ARR in the next 3 months.
Yeah.
And all efforts, including strategy, are tailored to reach or exceed that number, which includes our efforts into joining meetings. Again, several years of sales experience, preparing emails, preparing offers, doing negotiation, basically anything to just push the bottom line forward. Awesome. So that is, I think, the main difference from at least anyone that I've ever worked with on the consultancy side.
Yeah, it's so cool that you say that. I worked with the e-commerce as an analyst at Telenor, and what's good with the telecom space is that they always throw money at the problem. So they always buy, especially Norwegians. They just go sort on the most expensive, and then they take that. So it was fun. We got to work with all of the most expensive ones. And it was sort of a correlation sometimes in between, or sort of like this U. So the one in the middle could be like really, really good. The most expensive one, like McKinsey, not so much. A lot of Germans, so the cultural fit wasn't there. But the funny thing was, one of the guys who was actually pretty good, he told us like, yeah, you need to go into customer service and talk to them and sit in the calls, and you need to do this and this and this. And I asked him, all right, so when you did this experiment, when you were at customer service and you tried to talk to them and you did this, what did you find? And he said, I don't do that. It was so funny to catch it. It was a little bit of a trick question, but I thought that this guy, it was actually, they worked with some pretty cool companies and he wrote a book and everything. So I just assumed that he was going to be hands-on.
But this is the thing, man. This is what grinds my gears, is that I have met so many of these people, and I am a pretty blunt and straightforward person. So I ask a lot of the questions that you just mentioned now. Yeah. So we're talking, for instance, my expertise is enterprise sales. We have happened to bring people that do like large deals, and there are playbooks, and they wrote books, and it's and the first question that I go and ask is, okay, what's the biggest deal you've closed? Who it was, how it went down, tell me numbers. Like, no, but it's more on the theory. Like the book is based on research, and it's like, oh, okay, but if it's based on research, why wouldn't I go work with the person that gave you the information? You're just interpreting other, and that's not bad as an author. to interpret other people's work. But when you're trying to teach someone how to do a job, in my personal opinion, and this is a convoluted topic for a lot of people, you need to have done the job.
Yeah.
To have hands-on experience. And again, coming from McKinsey or BCG or whichever of these companies, there are organizations that are a great fit for them. We don't work with these organizations. And I think at least you need to have worked in the size of company you're trying to advise. Because working at, talking about startups, if I worked at Spotify the last 6 years, and I worked at Scribe when they were 12 people, like, it's not the same thing. We can call it startups technically, but it's just a completely different world.
Yeah, for sure. And just the mismatch a lot of times can be quite interesting, especially having these people who are very, very good in theory and reading up on theory, which is the typical McKinsey consultant, that they're very good in school. They know how to digest a lot of material, and they're usually quite high on the intelligence side, but the practical, they just didn't have time to get the practice in. And that's fair and fine. They're usually pretty ambitious, so a lot of times they can make up for that. But practical experience, it's so easy to do also, right? I think one of the T-Mobile CEOs that did a turnaround on T-Mobile was a pretty big thing in the US. He actually set supposedly 2 weeks in customer service listening to the calls before he actually started doing anything. And it's one of those things that when you do that, then you can actually get some really good insights. It's quite tedious, but really, really good. And not too many people do that. So,
But it's sort of going back to the authenticity narrative, right? It sort of depends what you want to do. If your goal is to get as large of a contract in place, get paid, leave, and never have to look back, I guess that's your business model, and that's fine to the people that want to do that. If you're looking for impact, specifically short-term impact, because when we're talking about startups, which is the industry or the ecosystem we decided to stay with, quarter by quarter can make or break the company. We're not talking about a 3% improvement in inbound over 9 months that might or might not have an effect in the bottom line when you have scaled upon like 3,000 people. We're talking about either we can raise that Series C or not if we hit the growth curve. So there will be no company to implement the the results of the workshops to if we don't succeed to an extent, right?
Yeah. So, what's the most fun part of working with the industries that you work with?
The most fun part has to do with, there are so many things. The first part is innovation and the vision that people have, and seeing the energy in the room and how passionate founders are for their baby and their idea and how this will scale, how much effort they put in, how creative a lot of these people are. And how much, just the sheer amount of energy that you see in these rooms and enthusiasm and high spirits. It's super energizing to see and to be around. And then it's also super fun to how willing people are to move and test things and try things to change and take different approaches. And I think the most fun part is to have short-term impact. So to go to a company, I have a recent example, to go to a company, talk about a new ICP and a new buyer persona on a very high level, get a call in a week and a half after, saying that we closed our largest deal to date with that ICP. It took us only a week. Thank you very much for the help. Like, this is something that resonates a lot and gives us a lot of energy.
Yeah. So, do you have any particular fun stories other than that one that is just noteworthy?
Several. So it has to do with, for instance, we've seen there is a trend when we start talking about sales process to either close or start either the highest or one of the highest ticket items in the pipeline. And it's super fun to see how small tweaks into sales process can result into very short-term results. That has happened several times. Another fun story has to do with, I had a customer recently, we started talking about LinkedIn strategy, which is currently my main marketing channel. And seeing them go from booking one meeting a week to 15 within a week and a half, just by implementing a consistent LinkedIn strategy. Again, I'm a salesperson at heart. I am addicted to dopamine kicks. So short-term results is what makes me happy, and this is what I aim for our customers as well.
So I sort of like software tools, but talking about tools, it doesn't need to be software tools, but do you have any tools that you work with and that you prefer?
I have a few. My favorite tool currently is called Extrovert. And what it does, or what the company does, is it's a system that allows you to comment at scale on LinkedIn. So you have the people that you, the ICP that you target, the key stakeholders in that ICP. It allows you to track and participate in their threads, which has become, in 2-3 weeks from when we started using that, it became my main lead channel by a very good margin. And I'm talking inbound channel, not outbound.
Yeah. What's the?
And this is, sorry.
What's the domain, or extrovert.ai?
It's like Go Extrovert. Let me have a look. It's goextrovert.com.
All right. Yeah. Because sometimes you get these really weird companies ranking on these words.
Yeah, no, you will find primarily, if you type it in itself, you will probably find personality types. But yeah, it is goextrovert.com.
Yep.
And the reason, and this is to go back to the question you asked me earlier, why this is so fun, seeing ideas like that that address specific parts of the sales process. So I've always believed that sales is a pull, not a push motion. We need to make people interested in talking to you instead of pestering them or talking at them. So a tool like that allows me to join the conversations my prospects or my customers are already having, their topics, their timeline, their interests, and joining those conversations with the insights that I can provide aligns very much with my sales strategy. I think you should be providing insights, but not taking most strategy on LinkedIn and in sales in general is taking a small wooden box when you go to a party, stand on it, it's just shouting at people instead of going in like a person and joining their conversations and talking about what they're interested in. Instead, what we do is we assume with very poor data what they're interested in, and then we're trying to cram as much information their way as we humanly possibly can, which is completely nonsensical in my opinion. So this is why I like the tool, primarily because of where the idea comes from and what it allows me to do.
Yep. And what kind of trends do you see in the industry?
In what part? There are so many. I'm not going to say AI because we're going to play AI bingo in here if we start going that
No, of course.
that route.
But
But in what
applications
part?
then? I suppose just what would you wish that your customers were up to date on so they could just see that this trend is really something that is cool?
Right.
And
There are several things. So I think that outreach in its entirety, how it has been working, needs to either be dramatically reformed or, in lack of a better term, put down. So asking people to do 100 calls a day and push 800 emails a week is something that objectively, supported by data, is not something that is functioning anymore. There are a lot smarter ways to engage your audience. I keep getting into fights about cold calling. I think cold calling is, I'm not going to say dead because that's I think an overused sentence, but I would say highly ineffective nowadays. So I see we're trending into a place where thought leadership and exposure, so attention, has become the new currency. I recently talked to a marketing manager. He picked up a tool for analytics. I think it was. I asked him, why did you choose that tool? And he said, to be honest, I have no idea. I see the reps everywhere. I don't think they have ever interacted. No one cold called him. No one sent him an email. It was since we stay on LinkedIn a lot. So yeah, I saw them around. They have good takes on things. So I just sent them an email and I bought it.
Wow. That's interesting.
So I think this channel actually putting effort to connecting both as a brand and as an individual with your market will become increasingly more urgent. And it's still, people are quite, especially larger companies, are quite resistant into investing in that. It's a lot lower effort to push a 16-step sequence to somebody that try to bring your personality out and talk to them like a human being.
Yeah, it's sort of like the tool first and then the content later, but then you flip it on its head. I think Chamath Palihapitiya, who was the growth VP of Facebook, he said it very well, where he sort of said that the atomization of the value is going from sort of the infrastructure. So you had the telecom companies that created the internet, and then sort of came the applications, Facebook, Google, and so forth. And now we're seeing the atomization that we actually have a billion, how do you say, $1 billion companies that are just creators like Mr. Beast. And then, of course, Mr. Beast, perhaps he has many different channels. So he has gaming channels and whatnot. And maybe he's more famous for his gaming channels in certain verticals and can work with that. So you have even smaller and smaller bits all over the place. And the distribution is endless and, very cheap on the internet.
There are so many tools. So if you create content, because I think content is the new business currency, in whatever way you see it, it's no longer a thing that marketing is solely responsible for. It's a company-wide responsibility, or it's a brand-wide responsibility. And if you create personal branding content, there are so many tools that you can repurpose and scale that content. So for instance, what I advise my customers to do, we were on a webinar yesterday, live on Monday, talking about crossing the chasm in SaaS as an example. Each webinar can be cut, repurposed, like an hour of video, like what we're doing now, can be cut and repurposed to LinkedIn videos, to blog articles, to posts for LinkedIn, for Twitter. I'm refusing to call it X. to shorter clips for YouTube, full podcast as you have already on YouTube.
Yep.
So creating content and then repurposing it at scale, because the argument has always been, but I don't have the time for that. Automation just scales. And what scales is failure these days. We're failing at volume and at scale. So we're looking at campaigns with the 0.3% reply rate, and we keep running them.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I think that this Y Combinator says do things that don't scale. And I think we forgot about that a lot of these founders, like the Airbnb founders, actually went around with cameras themselves and visited their tenants and said, hey, we can make better photos for you. And they put that service into their service, that you can get actually a person coming up with a camera in your apartment and take better photos, because that will help the users. And that's not very glamorous. These guys were very scrappy. And I think we've sort of lost that, because it has become this glamorous. You're supposed to be an entrepreneur and have nice clothes and get awards and everything. Yeah, have nice clothes.
No,
yeah.
but that's the thing, man. That's the thing. And I will do my own reference to another person now, since you made a few yourself. I was listening to a podcast with CEO of now it's a group of companies called Lempire. So from Lemplis to Taplio they have a lot of tooling. They're doing super well. And he said something similar. So when it comes to doing things that don't scale, and they asked him, so how did you scale your company? Is like, we overcommitted when it comes to customer interactions. We overcommitted to everything. To make sure that our customers are super happy, that they're growing, that they're referring us. And again, going back to human connection, committing yourself, being passionate about the stuff you do and putting yourself out there, especially in the era of AI, mass personalization and automation, is what creates a strong and relatable USP. Again, going back to the initial quote, putting your weight into helping people, interrupting patterns, and going with the camera or sitting with them personally as a co-founder to set them up in their office is the things, the very altruistic things, the non-scalable things are the best investments back into your business in the long run. But we have moved from I think COVID and the inflation that followed has brought the market into a more pragmatic space. We hunted, so scalability is all that startups talked about, all that VCs and investors talked about. Because it's not really the management teams usually, it's their boards. So we talked about hire more people, open more offices, scale. Yeah. And at some point we forgot what we're scaling.
Yeah.
So what is the substance that we bring these people in to do? And then we had mass layoffs, because obviously.
Yeah. But how do you feel about outsourcing? And I mean, particularly outsourcing overseas. So I actually started working with a company that does outsourcing in South Africa. And I love that, because South Africa is a very beautiful country. I visited it many times. And I think that their culture is actually quite, European in a lot of senses. And they have the same time zone. So that's why I work with them. I think it's a cool product. But how do you feel about outsourcing to other countries?
I think it's a brilliant idea. I think it is. I think the idea of looking for local talent or even regional talent, if you look at Europe, is quite outdated. And I don't want to get into politics, but it doesn't always come from a good place. I am a big proponent. Wherever you can find the right competence, you should go with that. I'm a big proponent of outsourcing in general.
Yeah.
Both in software and in services, I think things you can delegate, you shouldn't try to do yourself. and also be a bit humble and rely on other people's expertise that have done this for 12, 15, 20 years, instead of saying, I will build my marketing motion with my friend John that has run marketing for his dad's furniture company, and I will now bring him in as a CMO, which is, in the beginning, is a great idea to do because he might be super passionate. But as you scale, I would always advise both my customers and your audience to look for expertise regardless of region, rely on that, and not try to do or build everything themselves.
Yeah. And what should, if you're gonna bring in new suppliers, what is important, do you think, when it comes to just taking in new people?
I would say I have two things. Mentality is the first. So tying back to what we were just talking about. So how many questions I get in the first meeting, how much actual genuine interest I see in my business, how my business functions, what is it that we do, where we differ. To be transparent, you did a better discovery in the beginning of this podcast that most salespeople do, talking about unique points in the business, right? So taking actual interest in seeing my company succeed, specifically as a business owner or as a founder, as a CEO or a CRO even, you have emotional investment in your project, not only fiscal, because we keep talking about 33% increase, whatever. You have actual emotional investment in your project. So the first one is genuine interest and care about seeing the project succeed. And the other one is together expertise and interest. So expertise is super important. I want to trust people that have been doing this for a while. But commitment in, I have no problem with an external supplier when I ask them to do something. It's like, you know what? I haven't done this a lot, but either we can find you a resource or we can A/B test this together and figure out an optimal way to do it, is also very much appreciable. So I would say expertise and or mentality and expertise in that order.
Yep. So I have a few finishing questions here. Let's see. So I think just working in your industry, so sales in software as a service, what's the most fun part of that? What do you enjoy the most, except for getting, quick results and really like punching through and being like the success?
I enjoy the proximity that sales has to psychology. I enjoy discovery. I enjoy understanding how people work, what makes them move, what makes them motivated, what makes them make decisions, what makes them grow. And this is also what attracted me into going into management. Sales is a quite unique profession, and to an extent marketing too, that the messaging that you play with has a big chunk to do, or a big part to do with psychology, social, like societal context, conditioning, environmental impact, not environmental impact as ecosystems, but the environment, the cultural environment the person is in, how it impacts their decision making. We talked about Germany as an example, how the culture, the mainline culture affects business culture, how business culture affects individual decision making. How can that be subverted or enhanced? Like, these things are, and this is why you see a lot of these books are psychology books, because I think sales to a degree is applied psychology, which I find fascinating.
Well, thank you. And I suppose that my second to last question is there any questions that you have missed that you would have liked for me to ask you?
I don't believe so. We could talk about marketing strategy if you want, since it is a common interest.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would love to hear your take on marketing in your space.
So, as an agency, if you can call it call us that, I can testify this. We have built a quite substantial pipeline within the last 2.5 months. We operate, most of that pipeline has been built inbound, not outbound. And the way that we achieved that, or rather the way we didn't achieve that, was neither of us has picked up a phone the last 3 months to call. We haven't sent, besides our newsletter to our install base, we haven't sent a single outbound email. And all that we've done is some very low ad spend, primarily to promote our webinars. The rest is content creation, primarily on LinkedIn. So posts that are quite thought through, addressing specifically trying to assist and educate our industry, especially people that are younger or earlier in their careers than we are, because as you see, I'm pretty old. And then participating in conversations. And this is, again, even in the high range of my ICP, this is what has brought discussions to us as people individually. And this is where we build our entire pipeline. We closed our quarter 3 weeks in advance. And again, we are 10, 12 people company. We're not that big. So it's quite interesting how much you can do with content, with targeted ad spend and a presence in the channels where you're, because I'm not going to suggest LinkedIn for everyone. But if you finding the channels where your buyer persona, your prospects, your customers are spending time, finding the concepts and the topics that they're interested in and talking with them rather than at them is a great strategy. And it's also not a strategy that will break your bank.
Really good. And how can people find you on the internet?
LinkedIn. It's we all live on LinkedIn. It's the main place that we spend time on. So if you search my name on LinkedIn, you'll find me. We can probably put a link in when the episode's out.
Yes.
But yeah, just shoot me a message on LinkedIn.
Perfect. All right. So, Mr. George Storm, CEO and co-founder of Break the Box, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you.